Happy Wholesome Wednesday, and thank you very much for joining us on this beautiful Wednesday morning right here on Africa Good Morning. We are broadcasting the news-making headlines across Africa. My name is Aina Raizakoyo alongside the beautiful Tayana Master.
A very good morning to you, beautiful Aina, and a very good morning to you, Africa. Now, Aina, today is one of my favorite days because we are celebrating milk.
You love milk?
I love milk, so much so that there's a running joke that I drink coffee-flavored milk.
Oh, wow. Do you prefer fresh milk or cremora, or both?
How dare you call cremora milk?
It
but
is!
Anyway, fresh milk. Now, World Milk Day is an international day established by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations to recognize the importance of milk as a global food. It has been observed on the 1st of June each year since 2001. Here's a video on World Milk Day.
Let's get into our top stories this morning. Over 500 killed in Mali clashes as military junta loses grip. Over 500 civilians died in an attack carried out by armed forces and Islamist group in Mali from January to March this year. The United Nations said in a report that detailed the rapid unraveling of an already desperate security situation. The killings represented a 324% rise over previous quarter and highlighted the failure of Mali's military junta to limit human rights abuses or stop group linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State from carrying out campaigns of violence. They came just as Mali cuts ties with former colonial power France and the Wagner Group, a Russian military contractor, steps in to help defeat militants who have carried out attacks in the center and the north of nearly a decade. Mali's military, which took power in 2020, did not respond to the request for comment. Wagner Group could not be reached. Malian armed forces, supported on a certain occasion by foreign military elements, increased the military operation to combat terrorism, some of which sometimes ended serious allegations of violations of human rights, the UN's Malian mission said in a report.
Now, famine risk worsens in Horn of Africa. The risk of famine in Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia keeps getting worse with the prospects of another bad rainy season, the 5th in a row, several UN agencies warned on Monday. There have been several warnings by the United Nations on this issue. Somalia and parts of Kenya and Ethiopia have been hit by a weather phenomenon unseen for at least 40 years. A succession of 4 rainy seasons with low rainfall, said the UN agencies and other partners involved in humanitarian action. The March to May 2022 rainy season is likely to have been the driest on record, and there is now a real risk that the next October to December rainy season will be below expectations. According to the statement, drought has already led to the death of 3.6 million heads of livestock in Kenya and Ethiopia, in areas where livestock farming is the main source of income for local populations. The situation is no different in Somalia, where a third of the livestock has died since mid-2021. In addition, crops have been destroyed and people have been displaced in search of food and water. More than 16.7 million people in the 3 countries are already acutely food insecure, a figure that could rise to 20 million by September, and even more if another unsatisfactory rainy season occurs in the 4th quarter, the signatories note.
3 arrested after Senegal hospital fire kills 11 babies. Senegalese police have made their first arrest in connection with a fire at a hospital in which 11 babies died, trade union sources said on Monday. The blaze broke out in a neonatal ward in the western town of Tivaouane on last Wednesday. President Macky Sall fired his Minister of Health, Abdoulaye Sarr, a day after the tragedy. The 3 people arrested in connection with the case were a midwife, a nurse, and the head of the hospital's human resources department, a health union's worker official told AFP. They were being questioned on suspicions of endangering the lives of others. The 2 medical professionals were arrested on Sunday.
Now, in our next story, Sudan's military junta starts releasing political prisoners, lifts state of emergency. The African Union Intergovernmental Authority on Development and United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission says the release of political prisoners in Sudan is a step forward and will address the impasse created by last year's coup. The military seized power in Sudan on 25 October 2021, toppling a transitional government composed of civilians and military officials. The new rulers declared a state of emergency that granted expanded power to the security forces. In a statement, the AU, IGAD and UNITAMS commended the authorities in Sudan for lifting the state of emergency put in place by the military-led Sovereign Council soon after the coup. They said the AU, IGAD, UN trilateral mechanism welcomes the authorities' decision to lift the state of emergency and the release of the political detainees as a positive step to create the conditions needed for reaching a peaceful resolution for the current political impasse following the 25 October coup. The release of political prisoners in Sudan started on Sunday, 2 days after the AU Summit on Terrorism and Unconstitutional Changes of Government, which was held in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea. In Malabo, AU member states agreed that they needed to reverse the tide of coup d'etats by improving governance and respect for constitutionalism. We unequivocally condemn all forms of unconstitutional changes of government in Africa and reiterate our zero tolerance in this regard, the AU said in its communique.
Togo becomes 4th African country to eradicate trachoma. Togo has become the 4th African country after Morocco, Ghana and the Gambia last year to eradicate trachoma, an eye disease that can cause permanent blindness. Dr. Motsodiso Moeti, the World Health Organization Director for Africa, said children in particular could now live without fear of the curable disease's dangerous effects in Togo. It took Togo 33 years to achieve the elimination of the disease after the country included trachoma in its tropical disease program. The major elimination tragedy was screening and treatment of people with late trachoma complications. Community participation was central to the success in Togo, with community health workers trained to identify suspected cases and refer them to examination and treatment, World Health Organization said in a statement. We'll be right back after the break with more news.
You're watching Africa Good Morning. Getting into the second half of our top stories. Nigerian finishes charity ride from London to Lagos. Nigerian Kunle Adeyanju has finished the treacherous journey from London to Lagos on a motorbike in his campaign to raise awareness and raise funds to end polio in Africa. He arrived in Lagos on Sunday after covering over 12,000 kilometers across 14 countries in 40 days. He told BBC Pidgin that he was using the journey to give back to society by educating women and children along the route about polio. Adeyanju said the support he received throughout the journey was beyond his expectation. Many people offered to donate to the cause through the Rotary Club. He crossed the English Channel into France, then passed through the Spanish towns of Girona, Valencia and Cartagena before crossing the Mediterranean Sea on a ferry through the Strait of Gibraltar. He disembarked the ferry in the Moroccan coastal town of Tangier and rode through the capital Rabat, then to Marrakesh before crossing to Mauritania.
In our next story, Nigerian finishes charity ride from London to Lagos. Nigerian Kunle Adelunji has finished the trenches journey from London to Lagos on a motorbike in his campaign to raise awareness and raise funds to end polio.
Now, in our next story, Liverpool chairman demands apology for French minister's comments. Liverpool chairman Tom Werner has demanded an apology from the French sports minister after she said fans with fake tickets and the club's handling of their supporters were responsible for the trouble that marred Saturday's Champions League final. The match at the Stade de France, which Real Madrid won 1-0, was delayed by more than half an hour after police tried to hold off people trying to force their way into the ground. Some fans, including children, were tear-gassed by French riot police. On Monday, Sports Minister Amélie Oudéa-Castéra said that the initial problems were caused by Liverpool fans without valid tickets and accused the club of letting their supporters out in the wild. French Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin added that there had been a massive ticket fraud on the industrial scale. Werner hit back late on Monday in a letter to Oudéa-Castéra, describing her comments as irresponsible, unprofessional, and wholly disrespectful to the fans affected. The UEFA Champions League final should be one of the finest spectacles in the world of sport, and instead it devolved into one of the worst security collapses in recent memory. Werner was quoted as saying by the Liverpool Echo newspaper.
Egypt unveils a major find of 250 sarcophagi and 150 statuettes in Sankara. Egypt has unveiled a major new archaeological find of 250 sarcophagi, 150 small bronze statues of gods and goddesses and other antiquities at the Sankara necropolis. According to the country's Antiquities Authority, the artifacts were recently unearthed at the famed necropolis of Sankara near Cairo. The artifacts were showcased at the makeshift exhibit at the feet of Step Pyramid of Dozeh in Sankara, a 24-kilometer southwest of the Egyptian capital. According to Mustafa Waziri, head of Supreme Council of Antiquities, the find includes 250 painted sarcophagi with well-preserved mummies inside, as well as 150 bronze statues of ancient deities and bronze vessels used in rituals of Isis.
Now, in South Africa, ivermectin terminated as a treatment for COVID-19. The South African Health Products Regulatory Authority has announced that the anti-parasitic drug ivermectin is no longer allowed to be prescribed to COVID-19 patients. SAHPRA has terminated the Controlled Compassionate Use Access Program with immediate effect, saying there's no credible evidence it helps treat COVID-19. It said there have been several developments regarding the evidence of efficacy of ivermectin since the program was adopted. No further importation of unregistered ivermectin products will be allowed, and health facilities will no longer be enabled to hold bulk stock in anticipation of prescriptions for such unregistered ivermectin products. SAHPRA also said the findings of 2 large clinical trials conducted in 2021 do not support the use of ivermectin for patients with COVID-19. It said 2 national health organizations updated their guidelines and do not recommend the use of ivermectin in patients with COVID-19 except in the context of clinical trials.
Tobacco industry, a poison for the environment too, says WHO. In the latest report by the World Health Organization, tobacco is one of the world's biggest polluters, from leaving mountains of waste to driving global warming. In a report released yesterday to coincide with the World No Tobacco Day, the World Health Organization accused the tobacco industry of causing widespread deforestation, diverting badly needed land and water in poor countries away from food production, spewing out plastic and chemical waste, as well as emitting millions of tons of carbon dioxide. The World Health Organization found that the tobacco industry is responsible for the annual loss of 8 million human lives, 600 million trees, 200,000 hectares of land, 22 billion tons of water, and releases about 84 million tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Tobacco is not just poisoning people, but is also poisoning our planet, Kretsch told the press conference. Each of the 4.5 trillion cigarettes butts at the end of the environment, each can pollute up to 100 liters of water, he said.
All right, that brings us to the end of our top stories. Now, after the break, we're going to be taking a look at organic agriculture. Stay tuned. Now, with food prices soaring to ridiculous amounts, it's important that we plant our own food. Now, organic agriculture has the potential to improve both crop yields and incomes of smallholder farms in sub-Saharan Africa substantially. This is shown in a unique collaborative study from the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture and its partners that has just been published in the renowned journal Global Environmental Change. This study further demonstrates that in a real smallholder farm setting, the potential mentioned is difficult to exploit fully and requires sound implementation. Let's take a look at this interview.
The majority of households in sub-Saharan Africa rely to a large extent on smallholder farming for food, incomes, and overall livelihoods. They produce most of the food consumed in this region. However, agricultural productivity in Africa is still low and threatened by environmental, social, economic, biological, and other factors. In fact, globally, it is estimated that the yields of major crops could decline by up to 30% by 2050, and sub-Saharan Africa is not immune to this challenge. In the search for more sustainable approaches, organic agriculture is gaining greater recognition. Although studies show that organic agriculture comes along with some lower negative environmental impacts, global studies also highlight that organic agriculture is about 20 to 25% less productive than conventional agriculture. For sub-Saharan Africa, information on how organic agriculture performs in different contexts is still scarce. There is not enough high-quality data to show how organic practices actually perform on smallholder farms in comparison with prevailing farming practices. In our study, we therefore aimed at assessing the potential of organic agriculture to improve the productivity and profitability of smallholder farming in sub-Saharan Africa. We sought to create a scientific basis for answering important questions such as: 1. Should African smallholder farmers adopt organic agriculture? 2. Should policy and decision makers support organic agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa. Now, my colleagues Anya and Christian will tell you about the research methods and the major findings from this study, which we carried out together with smallholder farmers, other researchers, and other stakeholders.
So what did we do? We selected 5 case studies, each of them having a different organic initiative. These case studies are spread across different agroecological, agronomic, and commercial contexts in Ghana and Kenya. In each case study, we analyzed 300 to 400 organic and conventional farms over 2 years. In doing so, we were able to cover diverse farming systems with perennial and annual crops in humid as well as semi-arid areas. We covered certified as well as non-certified organic farms, which produced mainly for export or for the local market. Until now, existing data about productivity and profitability of organic farming in sub-Saharan Africa either lacked sample size, only looked at single cases of organic agriculture, suffered from too general or poor data quality, or lacked a sound comparison. So for the first time, we have detailed data about how organic smallholder farmers in sub-Saharan Africa actually manage their farm in diverse settings over 2 consecutive years.
We first compared the impacts of the initiatives on the farming practices and input use. All 5 initiatives led to reduced use of conventional inputs, such as synthetic pesticides and mineral fertilizers. In one of the certified organic initiatives, 92% of the farmers did not use any conventional inputs, while the other 4 initiatives made only 50% or even less of the farmers not use any conventional inputs. But none of the interventions led to widespread adoption of active organic management, such as biological pest control, intercropping, or agroforestry. The second
More than after 8 months in office, President Hakainde Hichilema yesterday held his first telephonic conversation with the Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Master Mike Sichula is here to tell us what they discussed. Good morning, Master Mike. Please engage us.
Africa, good morning. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, like you have said, more than 8 months after President Hakainde Hichilema assumed office, he held his first international call with his Chinese counterpart to discuss wide-ranging issues. Our viewers may wish to know that Zambia owes the Asian country more than 6.6 billion United States dollars in foreign debt, which is about 22% of Zambia's external debt, which is somewhere around below 30 billion United States dollars. So the discussion between President Hichilema and President Xi ranged from the discussion of potential greater cooperation and a win-win partnership. This is according to a post that President Hakainde Hichilema shared on his official Facebook page. The president said that Zambia was happy to know that China has agreed to come to the table to discuss Zambia's debt. Remember, there's the credit which Zambia owes the Chinese government at some point stored discussion in terms of the debt restructuring. But the president is happy that China has agreed to come to co-chair the meeting or the committee with France. So this is some of the discussions, though they were not fully given out to say this is what we have discussed in terms of the date. But one of the key issues also that President Xi said is that Zambia remains one of the greatest potentials for Chinese investment. So it is something that shows that the Chinese government is still willing to work with the new administration of President Hakainde Hichilema after the previous administration led by President Lungu was ousted from power in August 2021.
All right, now in our next story, while the next general elections will be held in 2026, the Electoral Commission of Zambia has commenced the continuous registration of voters in 10 districts in the country. Can you please expand on this?
Yes, according to the Constitution, continuous voter registration is supposed to take place almost every year. But during the past administration, this process was not taking place because of financial constraints by the Electoral Commission of Zambia. But this time around, the Electoral Commission of Zambia has decided to go ahead, meaning they have gotten funding from the Ministry of Finance. So the first exercise that is commencing today will take place in 10 districts of the country, and it will enable people who have who want to change their names on the voters card. Also, they want to change where they want to vote from, and also correct errors that may have been on their voters card. They can use this process to have their voters cards cleaned. Then they are also the commission will also use this process to remove deceased voters who have died, so that the register is cleaned and has the latest updated information. So this exercise is kicking off today, and it will go on in 10 districts of the country. Though some stakeholders have been calling for this exercise to be in all the 116 districts across the country. But due to financial constraints, the Electoral Commission of Zambia is not able to do that.
All right, Master Sichula, please tell us about a country that donated 250,000 doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine.
Yes, the Czech Republic donated 250,000 doses of COVID vaccines. Zambia has received these vaccines to ramp up its COVID vaccination. So far, the country has vaccinated less than 50% of the targeted 70%, which the Ministry of Health has set for itself. Then the Ministry of Health has also relaunched the national vaccination of COVID for the third time now. But the last period, about 2 weeks ago, a number of people were coming on board to register to get vaccinated, which the Ministry of Health said was something good, because according to their assessment, during this cold season, the cases of COVID are likely to go up, something which the Ministry of Health wants to ensure that does not happen, or if that happens, but the number of people who are supposed to be vaccinated must be vaccinated to reduce the transmission of the virus from one person to another, or to also reduce hospitalization, because it is believed that when you get vaccinated, the impact is not that much when you are caught by COVID. As you can see from those numbers, yesterday, one person died from COVID, and also when you look at the positivity rate, it's about 5%. In terms of recovery rate, Zambia has about 99% recovery rate. So the Ministry of Health wants to maintain this status quo.
Of course. And finally, in sport, Copper Queens captain Barbara Banda has been cleared to join camp for the upcoming 2022 Africa Women's Cup of Nations tournament to be held in Morocco in July. This is good news indeed, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed, it is good news for the Copper Queens, because Barbara Banda has been instrumental from the time the qualifiers began. Though she missed the crucial deciding matches for Zambia to qualify, but her presence in the team is something that brings an extra motivation to their teammates. So this inclusion is something that has excited a number of the technical bench as well as the Football Association of Zambia, because there were fears that Barbara Banda may miss this competition because of the territorial challenges that the CAF and FIFA had imposed. But it seems this has been worked on behind closed door, and Barbara Banda, who will be part of the 31 provisional squad that entered camp in Lusaka in preparation for the AFCON, will be staged in Morocco from 2nd June to 23rd, from 2nd July to 23rd July. So it's something that is good for the Copper Queens.
All right, Mr. Sichula, thank you very much for bringing us these stories from Zambia.
Thank you very much. Have a blessed day. Thank you very much. Africa, good morning.
A blessed day we shall indeed have. Let's have a look at today's weather predictions in Southern Africa.
You can always trust Africa Good Morning to take you on a trip across Southern Africa. Now we head on over to Cape Town, where we speak to Ari Hochad to give us the latest news in South Africa. Good morning, Ari.
Yes, very good morning from Cape Town. A chilly Cape Town, but I understand it's the same in Windhoek.
It's very chilly. Now starting off, South Africans need to buckle up as a massive petrol and diesel price increases are set to challenge all consumers.
Yes, indeed. The word that was in news and in media was historic high. And if you see a word like historic high, then you know it's the highest that it's ever been. So that is very high. In inland in South Africa, you will pay more than 24 Rand for petrol at the moment, 24 Rand 17 to be exact for litre petrol. So that is astonishing. The increase is 2 Rand 43 for petrol. That is effective as from midnight today. And 1 Rand 10 for diesel and 1 Rand 56 for paraffin. So it could have been a lot worse. Was it not that the fuel levy, the government gave the consumers a little bit of breathing space with a fuel levy of 1 Rand 50 that was taken away a few months ago to help the consumers. That's extended to the 6th of July. But then from 7 July to 2 August, that levy will be 75% added to the fuel price. And then the bad news will kick in on the 2nd of August. That's the day that everybody must remember. Then the full 1 Rand 50 goes back into the fuel price. So hopefully by then, the oil price and the currencies, the exchange rate, the Rand dollar would be better. But to August later this year could be a difficult day for consumers if the oil continues to be expensive.
Now, Ari, we understand there's an application in the Eastern High Court today. Please tell us about this.
It's still to do with the seismic blasting, and that's been a case. There's been a few cases like that, that the communities challenged the Minister of Mineral Resources and Energy, that is Minister Gotv. So it's a 3-day court event in the High Court in the Eastern Cape. The community and NGOs want the seismic blasting to be permanently stopped. And it came out in evidence in day one it seems like that the government might have slipped in 2021 when they approved the permit for Shell. That was because impact studies was not done properly and all concerns was not heard. So that's ongoing in the court at the moment, but it's big money that's been talked about. And so Shell is the other party that is with the government on the one side of this, that they want to continue with seismic blasting. The community and NGOs want it permanently stopped.
Of course, we'll be waiting for an update. Moving over, Statistics South Africa have announced an unemployment rate decline of almost 1% in the first quarter of 2022. Please expand on this.
Yes, the latest data from Statistics South Africa show that there's a slight increase. That's positive news. It's been going in the wrong direction for a while. It's down to 34.5, still a very high figure. It was 35.3 in the fourth quarter of 2021. So it pulls through to more jobs. Latest data show that there's 370,000 jobs gained. So that is mainly in the social services, manufacturing and trade. But biggest concern remain, unfortunately, in the ages 15 to 24 and also 25 to 34. Ages 15 to 24, the unemployment in South Africa is more than 60%, 63.9%. That adds up to 3.8 million people in that age group unemployed. And also 25 to 34-year-olds, it's as high as 43%. So the younger people in South Africa are really struggling to get work.
All right, now we understand that the Gold Fields is set to become the fourth largest gold miner in the world. How come?
Yes, they took over. They're buying over one of the biggest gold and silver mines in Canada. Well, it's based in Canada. It's called Yamana. And it's a significant gold and silver production that they will add. So they'll be the fourth largest. This acquisition will give them more exploration properties also in the Americas. That will be in Canada, Brazil, Chile, and Argentina. And the mine that they buy over now is valued at $6.7 billion US. That's 103 billion South African rand. So it's quite a big number. But in a South African context, 103 billion rand is still about 25% of what municipalities owe Eskom. So it's big numbers, but we have other problems in South Africa too. But well done to Gold Fields. They're a big player in the world now.
And finally, in sport, good news for Cape Town is that the very popular Cape Town Sevens tournament will return to Cape Town Stadium in December after 2 years of absence due to COVID-19. I'm assuming you're also particularly excited about this, Ari.
Yes, indeed. I've been to the previous ones. That's one of the best sporting events in the world. Always fully packed, but it's also great for the South African and Cape Town, Western Cape economy. That's the biggest news. So it's a big influx of people over the world. There's back-to-back tournaments. The 9th, also in early September, there's going to be the World Cup at that stadium. So you can see it's a big vibe, big positive, it's an impressive stadium. And then the 9th to 11 December is the Cape Town 7th. And so we're all looking forward to that, and it's good for the economy of Cape Town. Maybe just in closing, also South African news, the news of Comair that announced that British Airways and Kalula flights were stopped from late last night, and that's not linked to the fuel price or fuel supply. That is linked with additional funding that needed to be gained. So that's just breaking news from late last night.
All right. Thank you so much, Ari, for bringing us the latest stories in South Africa. Have a good day.
You too. Stay warm and great day. All the best. Bye-bye.
All right. And now we're going to take a look at our economic news. But first, a quick ad break.
You're watching Africa Good Morning, and here is economic news. Russian oil. EU agrees a compromise deal on banning imports. EU leaders say they will block most Russian oil imports by the end of 2022 to punish Moscow for invading Ukraine. The EU-wide ban will affect oil that arrives by sea, around 2/3 of imports, but not pipeline oil, following opposition from Hungary. Poland and Germany have also pledged to end pipeline imports, meaning a total of 90% of Russian oil will be blocked. European Council Chief Charles Michel said the deal cut off a huge source of financing for a Russian war machine. It is part of the sixth package of sanctions approved at a summit in Brussels, which all 27 member states have to have agreed on. Russia currently supplies 27% of the EU imported oil and 40% of its gas. The EU pays Russia around 450 billion a year in a return. So far, no sanctions on Russia gas exports to the EU have been put in place, although plans to open a new gas pipeline from Russia to Germany have been frozen.
Now moving over to Zambia. Test case Zambia exposes China's rookie status on debt relief, says sources. China's lack of experience with tricky debt restructurings and slow coordination among its public lenders is holding up debt relief for Zambia, a test case for the top emerging market creditor, three sources familiar with the matter said. Zambia became in 2020 the first country to default in the COVID-19 pandemic era, struggling under a debt burden worth 120% of GDP. Its external debt topped $17 billion at the end of 2021, of which a third was owed to China, according to Zambian government data. China agreed last month to co-chair Zambia's official creditor committee with France, a move welcomed by Zambia's government, which has made tackling the country's debts a priority since taking power last year. Emerging market investors in other data countries are closely watching Zambia's case for signs of how lenient Beijing will be in the future with overextended borrowers. China became over the last decade the dominant public lender to African countries, extending $160 billion in credit since 2000, according to Boston University researchers. A French official cited delays in the internal processes of China, adding, "We also need to have better coordination among China itself because there are a lot of agencies that have been lending."
Rising trade volumes blamed for congestion at Namanga border post. Increased volumes of trade goods are behind frequent queues and lorries at the Namanga border post. The citizen has learned breakdowns or failure of electrical systems for goods clearance, mainly on the Kenyan side, have compounded the situation. There had been an increased volume of goods crossing the border, said Master Paulo Kamukulo, the Arusha Regional Customs Officer. He was responding to last week's traffic snarl up at Namanga, where at one point more than 300 lorries, mostly heading to Kenya, were stranded there. He said what has been happening at Namanga lately was not unusual, given the increasing trade volumes between Tanzania and Kenya. The volumes of goods traded between the two neighbors sharply went up from early last year as they edge much closer than prior to 2021.
Now, Egyptian and Polish residents discuss liquefied gas supply and cooperation in Cairo. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi met Monday with Polish President Andrzej Duda in Cairo. The North African leader is hosting his counterpart for a 3-day state visit. Topics on the agenda included strengthening economic and scientific cooperation, as well as the next UN summit on climate scheduled in November.
Let's have a look at our economic indicators.
Now, of course, we signed off with Ari Holgard, but he's now back to give us the sports news.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with tennis news. Still a big week in Paris. It is Roland Garros. It is week 2 leading up to the finals being played on Saturday for the women and on Sunday for the men. And the news from the men's side of the draw is that there's 2 young new sensations coming through, 2 19-year-olds that qualified for the quarterfinals. That is first Holger Rune. He is from Denmark. He beat Stefanos Tsitsipas in the 4th round to go through to the quarterfinals. And then also Carlos Alcaraz. He's the 6th seed. He's already won a few tournaments on clay this year, and he is also in the quarterfinals. Both of them 19 years old. Other news from the men's draw is that number 8 seed, that is Kasper Ruud. He went through, he beat Hubert Hukres of Poland, that was in 4 sets. The score there was 6-2, 6-3, then 3-6 and 6-3 in the 4th set. In the women's side of the draw, it is Iga Swiatek, that is from Poland. The world number 1 is through to the quarterfinals. She had a tough game against Xinwan Zheng of China, losing the first set by 7-6, but then came back. That is Swiatek that came back and won the second and third set by 6-love and 6-2. So she's through to the quarterfinals. Also the 11th seed, Jessica Pegula of the USA, through. She beat Frina Begu of Romania. The score there 4-6, 6-2 and 6-3. On to some soccer news. It was the UEFA Champions League final that was played the past weekend. Real Madrid winning 1-0 against Liverpool, but the news from that game was still the late start, the delay of the kickoff by 35 minutes, because most of the Liverpool, or many of the Liverpool supporters could not get into the stadium on time. And there's now it's UEFA that came forward and said that they asked for an independent report on what happened. There's lots of accusations, especially from Liverpool's side, on how the French police handled the situation, with tear gas being sprayed on the supporters. But the French police and the French government, they say that there were many fraudulent tickets that was offered at the gates and obviously didn't scan, so that created the queues, and there was also locals that joined the queues trying to get in. Albeit as it may, it is an independent report that was being asked by UEFA, so we'll see what results from that. But there was no problem on the Real Madrid side, so it seems to be that there was some challenges definitely by the way Liverpool supporters approached the situation and the way that the police handled the situation as well. And now we continue with golf news. It is this coming weekend a big tournament on the US PGA. It is the US Open for women that's going to take place. That's going to be played in North Carolina at the Pine Needle course. Big news from the tournament is that number 2 in the player in the world, that is Nelly Korda, confirmed that she will play in the tournament. That is significant because in May she had unfortunately was diagnosed with a blood clot in her left arm. She had to get surgery, and now she's recovered and she's healthy again, and she'll be able to play in the US Open in North Carolina. The current world number 1, that is Jin Young Ko of South Korea, will also be in the tournament, and so too the world number 3, Lydia Ko of New Zealand. Big news also from the tournament is that Annika Sorenstam, she's 51 years old, a legend of the game. She's won 10 majors before, and at the age of 51 she qualified for this US Open, and she will also play in this year's US Open in North Carolina. And to conclude today's international sports news, some cricket news. It is Cricket South Africa and Cricket Australia that announced the schedule for the South African Proteas men's team for a tour to Australia at the end of the year. That's going to be December and January. And good news for South African supporters is that there will be another Boxing Day test for the first time in 13 years in December in Australia. So the schedule is 3 5-day tests that will be played in December, and then 3 50-over ODIs that will be played in January. The first test will be 17 December. That will be in Brisbane, and then the Boxing Day test will start the 26th to the 30th of December, and then the third test will be played in Sydney from the 4th to the 8th of January. The 3 ODIs, the 50-over ODIs, will be played on the 12th, the 14th and the 17th of January. So that's the international sports news for today. We talk again tomorrow. Have a great sporting day. Goodbye.
Ohole So Nice is an entertainment show brought to you by the youth for the youth. This is a dating show that allows individuals to participate and be their own true selves. If you would like to feature your brand or campaign on this platform, contact zone@synergy.com.na.
Thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. Now, before we sign off, let's take a look at the highlights from today's broadcast. Over 500 killed in Mali clashes as military junta loses grip. Famine risk worsens in Horn of Africa. 3 arrested after Senegal hospital fire kills 11 babies. Sudan's military junta starts releasing political prisoners and lifts state of emergency. Togo becomes 4th African country to eradicate trachoma. Russian oil, EU agrees compromise deal on banning imports.
Thank you very much for watching Africa Good Morning. We always look forward to hearing from you. We are on Facebook and Twitter. You can post all your comments there. Alternatively, our DMs are always open. We also have a website. It's called One Up 2. Please visit us for more content that you love to see. Africa Good Morning plays on DSTV channel 285 as well as Gotv channel 94. And there you can catch all our other shows. And on that note, it's all my love, all my light.